So we are going to start with the tree. We're going to bring this up and put little leaves on the end, but we're really going to work on the trunk of the tree. So I'm actually going to use my longer round brush. We're going to work with browns, so we're going to start with the trunk. At this point you can't see your drawing. If you want to, you can sketch it in. So you're going to get your pencil. We want the trunk to kind of come about here, and it's going to come up, and then you're going to have your branches kind of going off to the side. So we don't actually need to draw both sides, just kind of one guideline. This could be the middle of the branch of where we're going to have it. You can still see a little bit of pencil line that I had there. That's going to be a bigger branch, so we're just going to kind of make that beefier. And then it's going to curl up and over because it's a really tall tree. Thin that out there. And then you can draw how big you want your trunk, if you want a really thick tree or if you want it to be kind of narrow. I'm going to make mine a little bit narrow. And I'm going to do a couple extra branches coming off of it there. This is one that'll be behind. Okay, so we're going to start with our browns, and we're just going to start filling in the trunk the same that we did with the log on the side. So you'll want to create your brown 30% red, yellow, and blue, or if you've bought brown, I'm going to use my umber and cinnamon. Make sure you give them a little bit of a shake if they've been sitting for a while. We are going to need a little bit of white, and I'm going to put some red in my trunk. I find that it just makes the tree look a little healthier, a little more alive. So I've got my bright red. When you add it to the brown, it will mute it down. So we will be blending. Okay, so I'm going to start with my darker brown, and we're just going to paint that in. I know it feels weird painting over your water, don't panic. Now don't forget to do your sides. You want it to kind of continue on with the painting. And don't worry about being too specific with the line work. Trees are naturally very bumpy. They've got knots, they've got broken dead branches, and they are a little bit of a free spirit, so they will float around and do their own thing. Don't worry if it's not perfectly straight lines. And you're going to hide a lot of it with the leaves. But I find what gives a little more realism to your branches is if you leave bumps. It makes it look like a natural tree. So add a little extra detail and shaky hand there to make a couple waves and bumps in your branches. What we're going to do next is add the darker brown to the lighter brown, start adding some depth, let that first layer dry, and we're going to start adding some red hues undertones, and we'll get to some yellow as a highlight later. But we're just going to keep building up our browns and adding a little red as an undertone. So I've mixed my brown and my red at about a 50-50. And if it appears a little too red, don't worry, you can always add more brown and water it down or paint over it. Mistakes can always be fixed. So now we're going to mix our brown with a little bit of blue. I have some Copenhagen blue. And just a little bit of blue to the brown. It might go purple if you do too much, so just be careful. A little bit goes a long way. You can always add more blue. It's harder to take it out. So we've mixed that in. And you're just going to use that as a shadow. So go kind of on the underside of branches. You want an idea of where your sun is coming from. We've kind of done the clouds with the white here, the speckled line dots with the sun kind of on here. So I'm going to use this side as my sunny side, and I'm going to put the darker shade on the right hand side there. So when you look at shadow work, or when you look at shadows in nature, you find that just because you have a light side doesn't mean everything on that side is lighter, right? The way that they move and bend, even though it's a light side, there's still shadow. So if the branches are layered on top of each other, even though it's a lighter side, there still could be some shadow spots. Next time you're looking at a tree in the sunshine or a car or anything, you have part of it sticking out in the foreground as opposed to the background. It's going to have some highlights and some shadows, which is what gives you that depth and that realism. Kind of makes it 3D or stand off the page. So what I've done to add that detail is, even though this is on the light side, under here might not reach the sunlight, and on this side might not reach the sunlight. If the branch is round and curved, same as underneath, and some spots are going to be hidden behind branches, or some spots are going to be hidden behind leaves, and so we don't want the branch completely light all over. You want some dark patches. Same as the branch on this side may not get sun because this is blocking it. So even though it's on the lighter side, doesn't necessarily mean it gets lightened. And so you can add dark and depth to a few different places. If this was a bump in the tree trunk, you might get some shadowing going underneath it. And so you could add that there to add depth. And so you can make it your own and really put shadows where you feel like it would add dynamic and texture and realism to your tree. Now I'm going to go over these spots with a little bit of yellow mixed with my brown, so I'm using that cinnamon brown. And we're going to add a little yellow. Make sure you mix it up. If you need a reminder on color theory, you can follow my other video on how to make a color wheel and how to use tints, tones, and shades. I'll link that down below. So we've mixed yellow with our cinnamon brown, and we're going to start doing a little bit of highlighting on our tree trunk and our branches where you think the sun would hit, or where the tree has been lightened over time with sun exposure. So the tree has quite a bit of definition. You see how that just looks like it's curled and wrapped and twisted around itself? We're going to work on blending that in. Since we're on browns, we're going to work on blending that into the sand down below. So we want to kind of create texture and bumps similar to what we've done here, and we're going to sort of speckle that around underneath. So you do want to have a little bit of black set aside just to kind of add some darker areas. Get some of that ready. And remember, a little bit of black goes a long way. So put a little bit of black to the side. I'm going to take some of my burnt umber brown, add a little bit of the black to that and mix it together. And you're just going to add a few speckles and dots underneath the tree. So we're going to kind of make it look like a pile of sand has blown up and gotten stuck around the tree. Okay, it's a nice base layer. And we're going to lighten that up and add some lighter sand in there too. You also have shadow. So if the sun is coming from this way, this sand isn't getting any sun. So we want to keep darker browns on this side to give it more depth as well. So we're going to take some more of that burnt umber, put that aside, and we're going to add a little bit of the cinnamon brown to it just to lighten it up a little. And you're going to dot that in as well. Can add that into the grass. It's a pretty nice shade. There you go. Now I wouldn't go much lighter on this side, but we're going to add some lighter browns. So we're going to add some white to our mixture of browns. So we have the burnt umber and cinnamon brown, and we're going to add a little white to that mixture. The nice thing about while we're doing this is the branches are drying ready for the leaves. Okay, you want to add this as a highlight. Be careful because it's going to be a similar color to the background, so we don't want it to blend in all the work that we did, but just kind of highlight some details where the sun might cast light on the sand. And we're going to mix a little bit of the gray that we have in here to kind of blow over near that one. So you want your black and your white, and just very delicately, very lightly, a few little dots. Now since I've had to remix this color to make my gray, it's going to be a slightly different shade of gray than what I have here. So one of the tricks that I've learned is moving around and spreading out your color evenly. So if I have gray here, I have to make a new gray here and it's not quite the same. Add a little of that detail into this one. It really keeps it uniform and makes it look like it was all done at the same time with the same paints and helps it blend in really well. You don't have any eye catches or something that doesn't quite jive with the whole image. Now I'm going to use the small brush, and we're going to go in with a little bit of darker brown on top because I've put a little too much gray in there. I'm not too much of a fan of it. So we're going to go in with darker brown. It's the brown burnt umber that I've added some black to. There we are. And we're going to work on our branches and our grasses, and then I think we're done. Now I do like to use a square brush, just because I find that it holds a little bit more paint. I can get nice flat lines, so if I'm going to do grasses. I can also get about the shape of a leaf because of the size of this brush. With the size of the tree, it'll look like a leaf, which helps me with some of the work. But if you only have limited supply, say you've got the round brush, we can do little dashes of green that would look like branches, and then you can do long swishes to look like the grasses. So you can get away with either one. And use the square brush. Because we're changing colors and I'm going from browns to greens, I want to make sure I change my water. Okay, water's brown, we're going to go change that now. So get your brush wet. We're going to use, my palette's a little dirty now, we're going to use these compartments down the side. And you can make your green with blue and yellow if you didn't buy any green. I did buy this Christmas green, which is great for the branches and the grasses. And you can get away with using tints and shades with just using your black and your white, and you can make it look like different greens. So again, I'm right-handed, so I'm going to start on this left side, allows it to dry, and I'm not putting my hand in wet paint. So I'm going to start here and work my way across. You've already got black and white poured out from earlier, so we're going to take a little bit of this green, add it to a new compartment. Sometimes you get dried paint globs, just put them aside. It's dried paint from the container. I'm going to work dark to light, so we're just going to put some of this in exactly how it is, and you can test it to see what kind of line you're going to get. So that's really thick, so I'm going to do short little bursts just at the bottom to create some depth to my grass. It allows me to kind of see how this flows. Now I'm really not a fan of how big that is. I'll zoom in for you. So that's very wide. It doesn't look like thin, delicate grass. It definitely looks way too big for the size of my log. So I'm going to use a smaller, thinner brush. And we're going to use this round one here that we had talked about earlier. So I want to darken my green. I'm going to put a little bit aside. And just add a little bit of black to it, just the smallest amount. Now I want to water it down because I want it to be very fine and wispy. So you can see my green that I've made there. And you can test it out. And very carefully and lightly, you can even practice if you have a piece of paper, cotton, just really light wisps. See if you can do that. Now grass doesn't always grow the same angle and it's not the same color. I want a little bit of yellow grass in there, so I'm going to take a little yellow along with my green and put that aside. So we've made a nice little yellowy green color there. Add some water, helps it go a little bit smoother. Especially with the grain on the canvas, you won't get those little bumps. I'm going to change the color up again. So we're going to take a little bit more of that natural green. And we're going to add some of the darker green to it. So we're just lightening it up a little bit. Water that down. And as lightly as you can. Now we're going to take some of that green and add white. And water that down. You almost have a mint green and very light little brush strokes. Okay, there you go. Now we're going to copy that over on the other side. I'm going to use a little bit more darker because it's hiding behind the tree, so it's almost in shadow. So we're going to start with the dark. We're going to go in with the natural green color. If your arm is a little shaky, you can rest it on the handle of another brush. So put that down, put your hand on there, and that'll give you some leverage or stability for your hand to rest on if you're a little bit shaky and you want straight lines. Now we're going to use the color that we had taken, the regular green, and added a little bit of the dark. So it's kind of an in-between, a little bit lighter. And go in again. And if you really want to, we can do that lightest green ever so carefully right at the front where you might get some sunlight. And it'll just be short baby pieces of grass. Okay. We could have grass growing beside the tree. Say the tree has been there for a very long time and now grass has started to sprout up. Again, you want to do different colors to bring depth. So use the greens that you made, however you like. And if we really want to get adventurous, we could even have some grass around the log. I wouldn't do too much because we have done a bit of grass already. But if the water never reaches there and it's not washing it away constantly at like a high or low tide, say that log is always there, we could add a little bit of grass behind it. That's about as much as I would do. You could even do some of the browns, like the sand is trapped in the grass. Just to kind of anchor it down, it looks like it's floating. So you want something heavy at the base of the grass to really weigh it down and make it look like it belongs tucked in with the painting, not sitting on top. Now we're going to work on the branches. We're going to use the same greens. I like to do a combination of dark and light. So I'm actually going to use the smallest brush that I have again. And we're going to start with our standard base green. So I'm just randomly going to put a few around. 3 here, 2 over there, 4 there, 3 there. And you don't want to do it around the base of the trunk, and we want to do it right on the ends. Because this is one of the lighter greens, that original Christmas green is very light, we're going to put that kind of where the sun might catch a little bit. So when you look at a tree and you really look at it, you'll see 5 or 6 different colors of green. See if you can point them out next time, and you'll really see that it's very real, and the colors are quite unique and different depending on how the sun or the shade is affecting them. And just really look at what colors do you see. Not that you see a tree or a leaf, but what colors do you see? So you also need to decide how big you want your leaves. I think that's a pretty standard size for mine. And you want to kind of give them some sway or shape or move, something to give them character. Now I'm doing this out here off the branch because I know I'm going to do more leaves in there to give it more of that realistic look. Don't forget to do the end. And even though this is the darker side of your tree, it would still get some sun reflecting through the leaves. And take a look at a tree when you see that, and you'll see that the sun is reaching all aspects. If the sun wasn't reaching that side of the tree, it wouldn't grow leaves at all. And these leaves are going to have darker ones on top, so they're going to look like they're more in the background. The darker ones will kind of look in the foreground, and then we're going to add a little more detail on top of those to make them look a little bit more in the background. That'll make the tree look like it's deeper and richer than it really is. Okay, we're going to go in with our darker green and just put a couple around it. Don't go over top of them yet because they're still wet, so you're just going to make a big mess. We're just going to let them dry, give them some time, and add some of the other greens in. Now I am going to put some of the darker leaves on this side more than the other side, just because it is the darker shaded area. So let's say the angle that the sun is at, it's not quite getting as much. Now I'm going to use the yellow green that I had made earlier, that one there, and we're going to put that in as some details and highlights. I'm just going to put it in as little wisps, little small pockets of sunshine leaf. It does add a little more depth for this one if you put it over top of the other green. So you're going to take your yellow green, and if you put it over the other leaves, just halfway, as it blends and dries, it almost gives that realistic. And then some spots, let the sun shine through. Let it just be bright green. Now this side, being the darker side, we're just going to put a little bit, but not too much. Just the tiniest bits, right where the sunshine might be. It'll make the tree look fuller and make it look like there's leaves behind the leaves, which is what you want. Don't forget to do your sides. I love how full that is. I'm not too impressed with this little guy, so we're going to work on him a little bit. That dark green is a little transparent, so I'm going to add a little more dark green in there. And we really want it to feel a little more full, even up here. And you don't need to overthink this, it's supposed to be fun. Relax, enjoy what you're creating. If you want to paint your tree purple, go for it. I'm going to paint a little leaves back here as if there was a branch behind there. So we're going to use a little bit of our normal neutral Christmas green. Just do a couple leaves. And then we're going to add the darker one because that gives us our depth. And we're going to use that yellow. Just the tiniest bit. Don't forget to sign your work. What I like to do is sign in the bottom right-hand corner, and I usually like to use a paint I'm already using in the painting, something complementary. Since these are all browns and greens over here, I'm going to stick with a green because I have lots of green. I'm just going to do my initials, a little hyphen, and then the year 24. Or you could wait till it's completely dry, use a Sharpie marker, and you can actually do your whole signature right on there if you'd like to. And sometimes you can write the date on the back if you like to remember that it was July that you did it or it was January that you did it. If you do a painting for a location that you love or a favorite picture, you can write that on the back. So we're going to get a little bit of the green. We do want it to stand out, but not too much, so I'm just using my standard Christmas green. Little tiny S, a little D, hyphen 24. That's it. Thank you for painting with me. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoy the painting, and follow me for more. Thank you.